All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're breaking down a new framework that tries to answer one of the biggest questions out there. In an age of incredibly smart machines, how on earth do we educate human beings?
So where does all this come from? Well, our analysis is based on a strategic white paper from RAYSolute consultants called the Pancha-Ayama 5D framework. And it's not just a small tweak, it proposes a fundamental rethinking of what education is all about.
You know, this really starts with the central, almost philosophical question that this whole framework tackles. If AI can eventually do almost any cognitive task we throw at it, what's the point of education? What are we actually preparing our kids for?
Okay, so to really get the proposed solution, we first have to understand the problem. And the paper argues that our education system isn't just outdated, it's facing a full-blown evolutionary crisis.
And this slide really nails the core conflict. On one side, you have our education system, which was basically designed in the 19th century for an industrial world. It's built for stability. On the other side, you have the reality of the 21st century, two massive disruptions hitting us at once. First, the rise of artificial general intelligence, or AGI, AI that can reason and learn like us. And second, a massive systemic crisis in our ability to just focus.
This leads to a pretty stark realization. All of our attempts to fix the system are basically failing. Why? Because better textbooks or new computers are just small tweaks. We're tinkering with the variables, but the fundamental architecture, the whole foundation, is obsolete. As the slide says, the system just wasn't designed for this.
So instead of another Band-Aid reform, this framework goes deeper. It proposes a new first principle, kind of like a fundamental law of physics for learning. They call it the learning equation.
And here it is. This is the absolute heart of the entire framework, the learning equation. It says that learning is the result of spatial freedom multiplied by temporal freedom, all raised to the power of attention. It looks so simple, but wow, the implications are huge.
So let's break down that base of the equation. S, or spatial freedom, is all about a learner's access to different places, different information, and different people. And T, temporal freedom, is about their control over the how and when, the pace, the timing, and the depth of their learning.
But the real game changer here is A, attention. And it's not just about paying attention. It's defined as a skill you can actually train, the ability to willfully direct your own consciousness. And look at where it is in the equation. It isn't just another factor you add in, it's the exponent.
This quote on the slide just captures the whole idea perfectly. Attention isn't just one more piece of the puzzle. It's the amplifier for everything else. It's what determines the return on investment for every dollar, every book, every resource we pour into education.
The math itself tells a powerful story. Think about it. If a student's attention is at 0, any number raised to the power of 0 is 1. What does that mean? Stagnation. This explains why we can spend billions on shiny new schools and technology and see zero improvement in results. If the kids aren't engaged, it's all for nothing.
But on the flip side, when attention is high, let's say greater than 1, it becomes this incredible multiplier. This is why you see that village teacher effect, where one amazing, deeply engaged educator can get transformative results with almost no resources. The exponent is doing all the heavy lifting.
And one last thing about the equation. Notice that space and time are multiplied. That's so important. It means giving a student access to the entire internet, that's high S, is totally useless if you don't also give them uninterrupted time to actually think and process it, that's T. One is basically worthless without the other.
So now let's see how this equation plays out in the real world. We'll break down these variables into what the paper calls the 5 core dimensions of learning.
First up, spatial freedom. This isn't just about the 4 walls of a classroom. It's a mix of 3 things: access to different physical spaces, like labs or nature, structured access to all the knowledge online, and, this is a big one, access to different kinds of people, breaking out of that bubble of only being with kids your own age.
Temporal freedom is just as important. It's about giving students control over their own pace. It's about aligning learning with their own biological clocks. Maybe letting teenagers start the day a little later. And it's about giving them big, uninterrupted chunks of time, 90 minutes, 2 hours, to really go deep on a subject.
And here's what's so crucial about attention. The framework treats it as a skill that can be broken down and trained in 4 stages. You start with basic concentration, then you learn meta-attention, which is just being aware of where your attention is,
From there, you build up to the really advanced stuff, like managing your focus across multiple complex things at once.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually build a school system around this equation, especially in a world where AI is everywhere?
Well, the paper proposes a 4-stage architecture. You start young with screen-free, hands-on learning to build a solid foundation for attention. Then, later on, you introduce AI, but not as an answer machine. You introduce it as a Socratic partner, a tool that's designed to ask tough questions and challenge the student to think more deeply.
And there's a huge risk with AI, right? That students will just get lazy and let the machine do all the thinking for them. That's called cognitive offloading. To prevent that, the model has this really clever safeguard built in, the sovereignty ratio. It's basically a metric that tracks how much of the heavy lifting the student is doing versus how much the AI is doing. It ensures the AI is a partner, not a crutch.
So what's the bottom line here? What does a school built around this equation actually look like? Not just for students, but for the people running it.
Well, this isn't just some educational fantasy. When you look at the numbers, it's a much smarter financial model. By getting rid of fixed classrooms and using flexible spaces, you can dramatically boost how much your space is being used. You actually lower the cost per student, and because the outcomes are better, you can justify a higher tuition.
So really, when you optimize everything for this learning equation, it becomes a win-win. It's more efficient with money, it leads to better learning, and it even makes things like regulatory compliance easier. But most importantly, you produce a different kind of graduate, one who isn't defined by what they know, because an AI can know anything, but by the quality of their attention. That is uniquely human. And that really brings us to the final, critical thought to leave you with. If the future of human value isn't what's in our memory, but our ability to pay attention, then we have to ask a serious question. Are our schools actually designed for that future, or are we still preparing our kids for a world that's already gone?